Okay. Okay. All right. To make sure I can hear the sound. So I could do this all over again. So sorry. Um, yeah, I have a habit of like putting my video on mute and then not taking it off. And I was like so busy talking, I didn't notice that it had a little red button down there. But anyway, I'm back. Lene Willis, licensed therapist in Maryland, Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. I have a private practice where I provide virtual care to residents who reside in any of those four states. Um, I'm also EMDR trained, and I'm gonna just go ahead and jump right into it because we have a lot to cover. And I was just about to try to watch episode 8 so I can give you guys feedback. Hopefully tomorrow because I have limited time. But anyways, here we go. Jumping right into it. So I'm reviewing season 3, episode 6 and 7 of the Ultimatum, Marry or Move On. And I want to begin with the quick notes that I have, and I'm probably gonna like steep in some of the therapeutic points as I go through this process as I'm doing it again. Um, but oh, interesting. Okay, so I wanted to start by shouting out Zaina for standing her ground and directing her comments to where they needed to go, and then effectively handling the conflict that was coming towards her from Scotty after his yelling match with JR. It was obvious that he had a lot of bad energy from their conversation, Scotty and JR, that is, and he brought those accusatory tones to Zaina. She called it exactly for what it was. He kept saying it wasn't that, but it was exactly that. He was pretty much accusing her of um communicating with JR about his intentions with Sandy. Like what or communicating that that's what he had said. And the thing is did he have a conversation with her about it or not? I mean, some of it seems kind of sketchy. It seemed like he wanted her to say no, but she didn't feel comfortable with saying no flat out clearly because she realized that um it could insinuate that they have had no conversations about JR, and stemming from her point about you got some kind of like jealousy or something going on with JR. She pointed that entire thing out. I know he felt embarrassed by it, but now that Scotty is showing everyone his behind, I feel like I feel a bit more comfortable with speaking on it. I feel like Scotty in these moments, these last few moments that we saw him televised, he comes off as though he could be pompous and accusatory, which comes off as controlling and blaming because one, he was trying to blame Zaina, and then two, he was trying to control the narrative by asking her the question, have we had any discuss have I said anything about JR? To me, it wasn't just like he was trying to paint the picture that he really is innocent. It was more so that he was just trying to get Zaina to be a yes woman and to agree with him and to help support his case. And again, we don't know the entire um interaction. We don't know, we can't see the entire interaction. We don't know exactly what happened. Some of these things are produced. Some of the reactions are produced. So someone can ask a question about one thing and they would have a certain reaction, and then they may be asked a question about something else and then they have a different reaction, and then that different reaction is connected to the first question, which really wasn't their reaction, and that's how producing works. So we don't really know exactly what was said, and I think that we'll have a better sense of what went down, especially in some of those conversations when they do the reunion, right? That's what I like about the reunion anyways. So now I want to get into what do I want to get into? JR he kept talking about he was pointing out how much Nick's energy impacted him and the trial marriage with Sandy, and I think that that makes sense. It did throw things off a little bit. They weren't able to really focus in on their relationship. Not to mention Nick was uh texting and calling her all the time and things like that, like incessantly. So it was just I don't know. it's giving clingy. It's giving clingy. And that's what it is that she has to deal with, which is low key why I think she was in the bed crying because now she's back in her trial relationship with Nick, and he's doing all these things that she wanted him to do, but it took her being with another dude for him to start doing those things. But she's also simultaneously still grieving the loss of her initial trial marriage. And this is part of the issue of this experiment. You get connected, right? That sugar pill, um, placebo effect thing that I spoke about in the last video that I mentioned. So they're set up to have these emotions, right? And to experience this person as though they are truly a partner. And so that impacts your psyche, right? You can't put yourself into a position where you're acting and pretending to be a certain thing, especially such a romantic role, and then it not actually have an effect on how you legitimately feel for that individual that you're doing it with. Unless you think that they are butt ugly, a butterface, then um the chances are you will develop some emotions, or you would think that you're developing emotions for that person. So it's very sketchy. Something else I wanted to point out about Scotty and his reaction towards Zaina. When I saw him showing his entire behind in episode 6, and I think maybe even parts of episode 7, I, continued. It was confirmed before something else that he had done that made me feel, now I see why Arya doesn't really feel like she feels emotionally safe in that relationship. I think it's because when he's feeling insecure, then he becomes guarded and very defensive, and he doesn't allow the other person to wiggle out of anything. He becomes so stern, it seems like, and it's a defense mechanism. And I think when someone is experiencing a defense mechanism as such in their relationship, it's imperative that they seek individual therapy. So yes, couples therapy is helpful for identifying couple issues, but it's also helpful for identifying individual issues that need to be remedied through individual therapy. And I think that at this point, based on what I've seen with Scotty, the defensiveness, his behavior, um, the way that he responds to the conflict, that he needs individual therapy to help him with those things. It will still continue to be an issue in his trial marriage. And I think that's what Arya was saying in episode 7, that she really wants to see how he responds to her when they have conflicts, because now she's experienced a side of conflict that could be peaceful, that could be receptive and non-judgmental based on her experience with Caleb in their trial marriage. So she's looking to see how those things could be brought into her trial marriage with Scotty. And I'm waiting to see if it happens. I'm not gonna hold my breath because then I'm gonna pass out, and I'm gonna die, and nobody's gonna be here to resuscitate me. So not doing that. But we'll see. um, did y'all notice how JR took a shot at Zaina when Scotty said that Zaina was petty? JR could not wait to try to find some way to paint Zayn in some bad way. And I think it's because for a lot of the episodes, he's been the bad guy. He's been the wolf, right? In sheep's clothing, so to speak. And I think he wanted to put a stain on her because he was stained. But the reality is that she didn't stain him. So I don't understand why is he felt he needs to go out of his way to do that. Maybe he was joking, but I didn't get a sense that he was joking. He was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's yeah. Now you see that pettiness. That's what she do. That's what she do." It was just unnecessary and uncalled for. And I'm glad that Scotty checked him in that regard. But I think also Scotty just wanted to be able to check JR in some regards. So he used that as an opportunity to do so. So now Caleb cracked me up because he talked about he's traumatized sleep or panic sleep, waking up thinking he's sleeping naked next to Arya, but he's already back in his trial marriage with Mariah. And speaking about their marriage, they had a conflict. And I kind of want to bring in some of the therapeutic points here because conflicts in relationships are very challenging to resolve, right? But conflicts are necessary. And you don't necessarily want to approach conflict with fear. You want to be able to approach conflicts without fear, right? Because you're different individuals, there are going to be differences. You're going to have challenges. It's completely appropriate for that to occur. It's really how you manage those challenges. And what I was saying in the previous episode, not previous episode, but previous video that I recorded that could not be heard, that had to go and delete and then re-record. Um, Oftentimes you see like a partner that comes up very aggressively. They have a lot of anger, and anger itself as an emotion is not bad to experience or to have as an emotion. I wouldn't say it's a bad emotion. um it's really what makes it bad is how you respond when you feel that way, right? So if you're feeling angry and you're punching walls and you're breaking things and you're hitting someone, or you're degrading them in some way, giving them a good tongue lashing because you think that that's what they deserve, then that's when your anger is coming out in a way that's not appropriate. And so one of the things that you need to do is to figure out what is it that you need. Oftentimes when people respond so aggressively, it's because they need something. So think about your senses, right? The things around you. I was talking earlier about how the light in this bedroom, for instance, is a very harsh light. So if my daughter was experiencing a lot of anger, the first thing that I will probably want to do is take the lights off. So I might put the light on in the office, take this light off so that we can see, right? We can see one another, but it dampens or it decreases the sensory intake, a visual light sensory intake that she's experiencing, which would give her more room and space to share what it is that's causing the anger, the frustration, or the irritation, or whatever it is that she's dealing with. Touch is another thing. Some people need touch when they are experiencing anger. I had an ex. Um, he wasn't even an ex, y'all, because we weren't in a tight of relationship. That's another story. Um, but anytime he got really angry or agitated, I would have to pull him away from the environment, right? That's triggering for him, or else he would want to physically fight. Now, when you're kids and you're fighting, that's one thing. But when you are 24 or 25, 26, and you're fighting other grown men, you're going to jail. Okay? That's where you're going night, night. And who knows what's going to happen to you with all of that. So, you could pull a person away from from the sensory, that the sensory experiences that they may be having as well. Something that you can do to also help them with changing their sensory is not touching them, maybe singing to them, or maybe humming to them, or asking them to hum. Some people like rocking. Now, rocking is better when you do left to right versus up and down like this. It's better to do this. And you know why? It's because it's a bilateral movement, and bilateral movements are very calming, and it helps with desensitizing a lot of the agitation connected to whatever, a trigger may be. Um, and then also in talking about way to manage the just strong emotions that you could experience, there are calming techniques, and they fall on a different category. So the one I just mentioned is kind of like a little bit of a bilateral movement. Now that I would recommend to individuals who are utilizing EMDR techniques in resolving severe anxiety or trauma, like PTSD, or things of that nature that they're experiencing. If you don't have a clinician who is trained, find one who is trained. There are um, um, lots of therapists, BIPOC included, that are trained in EMDR that can adequately provide you the EMDR support that you need. Now, granted, the EMDR treatment is a bit more expensive, but it tends to be less sessions, and it tends to be less talking in there. And in maybe first 1 or 2 sessions, there's probably a bit more talking, right? Because you have to set up the EMDR session. But then after that point, you can engage in your EMDR. And if there's just one issue that you're resolving, or two to three triggers that you're resolving, it should go by pretty quickly. But don't feel bad if it doesn't. Some people could resolve their triggers within 3 sessions. Some people might need 5. Some people might need 10. But I'm just letting you know that cost-wise, it tends to be more expensive. So I just want you to factor that in when you're thinking about the types of support that you're receiving. You can also do EMDR and then do a regular session. Do an EMDR and then do a regular session. So I have some clients that I am doing EMDR with right now, and we don't do EMDR consecutively. That's a lot. It's very heavy. But speckling in EMDR sessions in between, it helps with desensitizing and reprocessing the trigger and the traumatic experiences that they've had that's causing the debilitating effects. Debilitating effects could be things that come up like anger or frustration, or difficulty sleeping, things of that nature. Now, other common techniques are things like distractor activities. So things that I say distractor activity because it's used to help you with like changing the channel in your mind, so to speak. So I don't know, saying one syllable words that are alphabetized, like Abe, babe, corn, dog, egg, fish, things like that. Um, you can also count by threes or count by sevens, all the way to 100, something like that that gets you again to think, because cognitively, if you're thinking about that and working that out in your mind, you're not thinking about the trigger, right? So it helps with reducing the strong emotions associated with the trigger, the more space and time that you put between your experience or your exposure rather to the trigger and you processing the trigger. Okay. There's also like breathing exercises, relaxation exercises, breathing exercises like the box or square breathing, relaxation. You can get that on your Calm app. um, there's a lot of different apps now that you can use to help you with engaging in relaxation techniques. There's also like sound bowls. I love Lanier Crawford, girl, same name. I get it. And what else I like? Grounding techniques, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 methods, the 5 things that you see, the 4 things that you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and then 1 thing that you can taste. If you don't have anything that you can taste around, you can always like say a positive affirmation or something along those lines. And yeah, I would say if you need some additional support, you can connect with a professional who can help you, someone who's licensed in your state who would either accept your insurance, or you can go on psychologytoday.com. You can go on therapyforblackgirls.com, therapyforblackmen.com. There are a lot of avenues in which you can go about finding a therapist that would be a good fit for you. And if the person is not a good fit, that's okay. Therapists are here to provide you with care. You don't need to feel like you're breaking their hearts because it's not a good fit. Like we'll be okay. Our our goal is to make sure that you are okay and that you are connected with someone who you feel like you can relate to more and who can address the concerns that you have, especially if those things could be cultural concerns and if there are cultural concerns in your relationship that's impacting your emotional health. So consider all those things. And what else did I want to talk about? When you are thinking about building a connection with someone, I feel like I talk about a lot of negative things. I want to talk about something positive. When you're wanting to build a connection with someone, think about the supportive and loving behaviors that you can engage in that helps you with connecting to that person. So if your partner says that they love flowers, but you're not a huge fan of flowers, or you don't want to create a habit of having to purchase flowers for your partner, think about other ways or other things that you can do for your partner that um points out that you did hear what they said about flowers and liking flowers. It could be something like dehydrating flowers or paying for them to go to a place where they can get some dehydrated flowers, or paying for them to go to a garden. There are a lot of like botanical gardens and things like that. That's pretty to see. You can send them floral arrangements if you want to, or you can send them like an edible arrangement, which sometimes if you want to, you can speckle in flowers in between here, in between it. There holds a whole bunch of ideas, just things that you can do just to demonstrate to your partner that you're listening to them, and that helps you with connecting to them. And in turn, they would begin to love you more because they see that you're listening, you're attentive to their needs, and you're being intentional about trying to connect with them. So think about these things as you're trying to grow in your relationship. And I think that's all that I have for you today. I'm going to keep it cute. I'm going to tell you guys good night, and I hope the sound is on. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please free to send a message in the chat or to add it to the bottom, and I will get that message and I will respond in the next video, or I will respond throughout it as I've done before. Clients have asked me, not clients, but individuals have asked me questions and I've addressed them through the therapeutic points. So I hope that those things were helpful. And if you feel like I have not answered your questions, feel free to be like, ma'am, I need you to get back to my question. You kind of answered it a little bit, but not thoroughly. I will be happy